Welcome to Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. We have a furry friend in the top corner. Alex, is that a flirkin?
I wish. It's just Pippin.
Just Pippin. Alex, how are you tonight?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for coming back. It's been a few weeks since we've had you on.
Yeah, glad to be here.
First time from Moon Knight. Kevin in the bottom corner. Kevin, how are you doing tonight? He looked frozen. He definitely is frozen. Ryan, how about you?
I'm doing pretty well. NHL playoffs started tonight. It's a good time. Doctor Strange this week. Let's go.
There is a lot going on in the world of hockey, in the world of everything. Kevin, we will get him back. I'm going to remove him. He looks very happy, though, so we can probably leave him up there for oh, he's gone. We'll get him back here in just a minute. We have Justin is here. Anthony is here. Sarah is here. And we are off and running. Let's get into it. Kevin is back. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
Pleasure to have you. So, Kevin, let's get into it. First and foremost, we are doing something very new on Instagram at Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. Kevin, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, we're doing a Earth's Mightiest Minute. I'm heading that up for Brian and the Weirdos on our Instagram page at Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. Every week, we're doing an Instagram reel of the biggest news, Marvel news from Marvel Studios or Sony. Especially this week, we covered the CinemaCon stuff or whatever. So just a good way to give you a little news brief in case you've missed anything, or just to keep up to date with what's happening. And it'll they've been fun to make so far, and we're happy for all of you who've checked it out and shared and whatnot, and keep watching them, and hopefully you'll learn some news if you might have missed anything during the week. But so we're hoping to do those every week. We'll see what happens when there is a slow news week, potentially this week, especially with Doctor Strange coming out and the finale of Moon Knight. We'll see what we do instead. But hopefully there's enough news to give a little minute briefs of what's happening.
Well, the way they've been going, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of news. You do not need to steer clear of those in order to avoid spoilers. It is just for the news. Anthony says that Marsha is the real MVP of the Nerd Emporium. Check out the Nerd Emporium's episode that was Friday night. Alex and Sarah interviewed Kelly Thompson, who's a Marvel Comics writer. And that interview was awesome. If you want to catch the full interview, Alex, I believe you can go to the Comics and Cinema podcast feed as well, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Whole thing's on there. There's a little bit of language, but a whole lot of awesome.
When Anthony says Marsha is the real MVP, Sarah got her mother on the show, and her mother was fantastic. Kevin, talking about Earth's Mightiest Minute that is on Instagram. They're one of the news pieces that was on there that was kind of shocking, not overly shocking. What's more surprising to me is not that the Marvels is running a little bit behind. It's more so that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is ahead, that they're able to move it up 5 months. So, Alex, are you super bummed that we have to wait 5 more months for the Marvels in July, but at least we get Quantumania in February?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep a positive outlook on it. I didn't take it as there being some issues behind the scenes, more so of just like, okay, I think maybe they decided to do a flip-flop. But thinking of it in a really weird way, I've had such a good time anticipating the Marvels, just thinking about how amazing that movie is going to be, that I can do it for even longer now, which I'm excited about. And same with Ant-Man. I mean, that one I feel like they've been talking about Ant-Man for a really long time. So to hear it being sooner has me excited as well. Just if not just to see what's going on with Kang and to see what else they reveal. Because, hey, who knows? With if we're going to talk about it with what happened with Fantastic Four 2, there could be, my prediction could still be correct about there being a little, teaser in that movie for FF.
If nobody knows what you're talking about, would you be willing to give us that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know the super details if there are any, but Kevin, what's his name? John Watts.
John Watts.
Yes, thank you. I figured it out. John Watts is no longer directing Fantastic Four. Chose to step away. Well-deserved break. I applaud him for doing so. In the spirit of self-care. I can't imagine No Way Home was easy for him to do. And so for him to decide to do that, I think more power to him. Also, though, because if any of you have read the Marvel Studios book, The 10 Years, Peyton Reed infamously wanted to do Fantastic Four during the Tim Story phase. And Kevin was gung ho about it at the time, but then the powers that be had said no, blah blah blah. And so I feel like Kevin has been kind of trying to, and so I almost wonder if Kevin was like, actually, John, that sounds about fine. I think we're gonna miss you, buddy. And then he was texting Peyton like, hey, guess what? Because I can't imagine Peyton was, like, hey, by the way, Peyton, we got John to direct FF. I know. Sorry, man. But so I'm hopeful that would be exciting.
So I mean, Peyton Reed, I really like the first Ant-Man movie. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp has some redeeming qualities, but I struggle with Peyton Reed's episodes of The Mandalorian, specifically the appearance of Luke Skywalker and how how Moff Gideon was treated in that episode. He felt like a completely different character than he did throughout the rest. I'm not like full gung ho Peyton Reed. Like, I'm going to be 100% honest. I like Bring It On, but I trusted John Watts a little bit more than I do Peyton Reed. I would be completely fine with it if Kevin Feige chooses Peyton Reed. Obviously, there's a good reason for it, but I was excited about John Watts. But you're right, Alex, like a much deserved break for John Watts, because the timeline that he would have been under for No Way Home was insane with how quickly. I mean, think about Morbius was completely filmed and in like post-production before No Way Home was even like announced and back official with Marvel Studios. Then it was filmed, then it came out, and then Morbius came out like 5 months later. Like, it's the timeline for No Way Home was insane. So good for John Watts for at least being able to be willing to do that. And I mean, to turn down that kind of paycheck can't be easy. Ryan, does any of this news really bum you out or make you feel encouraged one way or the other?
I don't think there's anything sinister here with the Marvels. I think Miss Marvel got delayed a little bit. I think it was supposed to come out before Moon Knight and maybe even a little bit earlier.
It was originally supposed to be before Hawkeye. It felt like the way they were talking about things.
Yeah, so I think it's just my guess would be that it's a matter of them fleshing out the Miss Marvel story. They needed more time for that for the Marvels, and that's probably just what caused some unexpected delays. And then Ant-Man was running ahead of schedule, so they were able to flip-flop them. Fantastic Four, I really trusted John Watts for it. Peyton Reed would be a good replacement. We know he makes good movies, but I was looking forward to John Watts. I just really want to see Fantastic Four, and I think that, I don't know where we're going to get him, but I just want the Silver Surfer to be in the MCU. That's who I'm really looking forward to.
And just to be clear, Peyton Reed has not been selected as the replacement director at this point that we are aware of. No replacement director has been announced, just to be clear there. But Peyton Reed, a lot of that seems to be written in the stars, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania will take center stage after Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out in November. Well, let's get into it. This episode of Moon Knight had a lot in it. I have two criticisms of this episode, neither of which are fair to this episode, but we will talk about that here in just a minute. But Kevin, this is your first time joining us since Moon Knight has begun. What has been your overall feelings on Moon Knight, and how are you enjoying the show?
I was really looking forward to Moon Knight. I definitely thought there was a lot of potential to it, and especially catching up on some of the comics ahead of time, just learning more about the character and what could be happening, what potentials we could see was really interesting. And then, yeah, once the series started, I was really hooked on it, and I definitely enjoyed the early episodes as they were giving sort of the mystery of it, and then as we were learning who Steven was, and then with Mark and everything. And I thought it's been a really great series. I've been really enjoying it, and at least this past episode I thought was probably one of the better overall episodes of any Marvel series. I know we'll talk about it, but a lot of people were comparing it to previously on the WandaVision episode 8. So I thought this was probably the best episode of the series so far, potentially, in my opinion. But and I'm really looking forward to however they're going to wrap it up. So yeah, it's been a really good ride so far.
So you brought up kind of both of my critiques to an extent. It is not any fault of Moon Knight that it is getting comparisons to that WandaVision episode 8, but it is very similar. And in my opinion, that episode 8 of WandaVision previously on is probably my favorite 45 minutes that Marvel Studios has done in Phase 4. So it's an unrealistic bar to be holding it to, yet it lived up to it. It's as good. Watching Oscar Isaac and how he acts that scene especially that scene in the street, is as good as anything that we've gotten, but it is very similar to WandaVision. And then you brought up, leading to my second critique, and again, it's not fair to this particular episode. How are they going to wrap up this series in 45 minutes? I don't know how it's possible. I don't think there's any way that this conclusion on Wednesday is going to be satisfying unless it is a season finale and not a series finale. There's been encouraging things on Twitter that Marvel called it a series finale. Now they're calling it a season finale. We don't know. But there was so much emotion in this episode, but we only got one even hint back to what's happening in the quote unquote real world, if we can define what the real world is. But we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Alex, it looks like you're nodding along. Do you kind of share some of those sentiments with me?
Yep, I had that exact same feeling when the credits rolled on my first viewing, and I appreciated the episode a lot more on the second viewing too. But just thinking about, like, I was thinking out loud, and I think we messaged back and forth on this, that there's like a laundry list of things that if it were to be, regardless if it was a miniseries or a finale, like there's a lot of things that need to be wrapped up or touched upon. And I don't doubt that they can do it, but the question, like you said, is can you do it in 45 minutes and have it not feel rushed or unearned? And it just makes me wonder, this whole 6-episode format, because I feel like with WandaVision, I was watching a recap of that last night, and it was so cool to think back on like how there's like, was it 9 episodes for that? Mm-hmm. And I feel we keep getting these 6,
9 episodes,
somewhat being similar to each other, in the sense of like you've got your recap episode as the second to last, and then the finale is usually a really big fight. Which, I won't spoil anything. I did watch the teaser for this new episode because I was like, I need to at least know that there's going to be something, and I was surprised and excited by it. The few quick snippets, and I was like, okay, I'm hopeful, but I am very nervous.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with everyone that it's going to be really tough to wrap this up in 45 minutes. Like we've seen this with Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've seen it with Hawkeye, where the last episode just gets rushed. And we've seen it even with Marvel Studios produced TV shows. I mean, we've seen it with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., with Agent Carter, with all these other shows, that the last episode of the season always feels rushed so they could have that sentimental moment at the end. And I just think that they have a tall task ahead of them. I will be extremely pleased if they pull it off in a satisfying way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hoping that it's not a good episode. I just think it's a tall order. And, to the fact that it's very similar to WandaVision, it's the terrible trauma tour of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant rather than of Wanda Maximoff. I'm getting the actors and the characters mixed up here. This series has been great. It's probably a very, very close number 2 after WandaVision for me so far. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I will say, like, the terrible trauma tour, like, one, having Mark Spector's mother being kind of that bad influence in his life was really interesting. It almost seems to be an abusive father in these circumstances. Like, not that really like makes that big a difference, but just the way his life was affected by his mother and how it was affected. We'll talk more about that when we get to it. But it is, when we're comparing trauma tours, I think Mark Spector's is a little bit more easy to relate to than Wanda Maximoff's. Not many of us have been in an apartment building that gets a bomb dropped on it, versus we've all been around somebody who struggles with alcoholism or something like that. It's a little bit more relatable. But we'll definitely get into it. We start in the episode. Mark has what looks to be a broken nose, and he gets very combative with Dr. Harrow again, and he gets sedated and put back in. And that's when we get back to see our wonderful, wonderful hippo friend, Taurette, I believe is how it's pronounced. Is that correct, Alex?
I think so. Yeah. Taurette is, I think, how they said it.
Yeah. She was fun. She was a lot of fun. And this is where Steven really came into being in handy, because he knew everything about what the duat was and all that kind of stuff. She informs Mark and Steven that they are dead, that they got shot in the chest. It seems like that is a real life event. So how does this whole Dr. Harrow thing work? I really don't know. Kevin, do you have any theories on kind of what may be happening here? We're in the duat. We're in the underworld, one of the underworlds. She compares it to how beautiful the ancestral plane is from Black Panther. I thought that was a fun MCU call out. But Kevin, what is going on here?
I think it's kind of like more or less like a limbo, like an in between type of thing where yes, so the body definitely got shot and then it fell into the water, which is then like kind of like the body and the soul then went into the duat, of the, this like limbo area. And then so as she was saying to them when she was trying to read her little scroll like note cards and stuff, she was like, I've never seen it. She said the realm is like the human mind can't comprehend it. So I guess whoever enters it kind of manifests it in something that like works for them. So obviously Mark created the Putnam Mental Hospital or whatever. So we created this mental.
So you don't see
facility.
Putnam. You don't see the Putnam facility being something in Mark's memories. You see it as a completely fabricated place.
No, I think it's in his memories. I think we're dealing with it's a very weird like Inception style hack, because the stuff with him and Dr. Harrow in the office, like that seems like a memory or some sort of actuality. But then when he gets injected into, or he gets sedated, goes back to like the duat, and so he's like in the limbo area or something. So I definitely think there's some actuality to the as a memory, and then he used that to form the construct. But yeah, like figuring out like you were saying, Brian, like okay, he got shot, but then how does him meeting with Dr. Harrow and seeing the other people who are the patients and the security guards, like how does that play into it? I'm not really sure where they're going with it quite yet, but hopefully that's something that'll be resolved and like we'll get a clear answer of like what's actually happening on this Wednesday.
I don't know how I never put it together until Steven said it, but he does look exactly like Ned Flanders.
Yes.
Ryan, do you have any theories here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the limbo that Kevin's describing, I mean, in terms of it being like a purgatory type place where you're awaiting judgment, and that's exactly what's happening. They're waiting for the scales to judge their hearts against the feather of truth. I think that, I mean, something's weird here with Harrow. I'm really deep in the tinfoil hat speculation right now.
You think?
And I think that there could be the possibility that since he completely fabricated Stephen Grant as an alternate personality, we never hear anything about his father. What happens after the Shiva, and that's when the personality started blending. I'm wondering if this is him masking his father, who's not able to forgive him for not coming to the Shiva of his mother. And his father's the one actually going after him, and Harrow is just kind of a projection type thing.
Man, I hope not. I really hope not. Like I thought Arthur, like I said a few weeks back, that Arthur Harrow was like a projection of like another personality, but I really hope not, because if his father holds against him why he didn't feel comfortable coming to the Shiva, then he really needs to do some self-reflection. Also, the dad, I recognized him. He was a detective in Luke Cage season 2. Alex,
I thought that was Fred Armisen.
Yeah, right. Alex, what do you got here?
Yeah, I took a note on this. So Tawret said you'd be surprised how many intersectional planes of untethered consciousness exist. And so I would at least start by saying I think it's really cool that Marvel is kind of throwing this out there, as there's a lot of people out there that whatever thing it is that they choose to do, and an easy example being people who will like go to Peru to try ayahuasca, or whatever it is, they're using some sort of herb or drug to alter their consciousness, and they say they experience these crazy things, right? They're like, oh my god, I saw heaven, or I was with little tiny people, or whatever it ends up being. But this is Marvel basically saying that, but giving it the Marvel treatment of, well, that stuff's actually real and it really is happening. And so I thought that was really cool to show, just exactly like you said, Kevin. And I think we talked about that last week of like him not just being the avatar of Khonshu, but falling in and dying. He's in this limbo place that, like Inception, is taking, I imagine, is taking in the span of a second. All of this stuff that happened in this last episode, he may even still just be falling in the water while this is going on. But I think Harrow is completely real. I think that whole piece of him in the hospital is either his mind projecting certain things towards him, or it's Harrow doing it on purpose, because we know now by the end of this that Harrow released Amit, and so he's got some form of power, even more power now, and probably her full avatar as well. So maybe there's a piece of that as well, and that's trying to keep him there. But at the same time, again, it could just be a complete projection, because now it's like he's not even in the hospital anymore. So it was pieces of a fractured mind where half of his brain was thinking that he's in an insane, and that's just like the comics, where it's like you don't know exactly what it is, but your brain can put the pieces together close enough. Like, this makes sense. It's not too crazy, but you don't want to dig too deep in it, because it goes into a black hole. So yeah, no, I think all of it was in his. It's the Harry Potter thing, right? It's all in his head, but that doesn't mean that it's not real.
I kind of started to think maybe Harrow was like, these are like true memories of Mark, and Arthur had learned that Mark was now Khonshu's avatar, and he knew this was the only way he was going to be able to get to Amit, and he kind of posed as a psychiatric, or as the doctor, and knew this was the only way he could get closer to Mark. Like, I don't think that's exactly what's going on, but I have zero theories, which is a first for me. We go into a cafeteria full of Mark's victims. He remembers exactly where they are. Steven is judging Mark at this point, says, why don't you take a life and see what you can remember? But then we follow this little boy and we meet Mark's family. We see a drawing of the one-finned fish. We also hear Later's Gators. We learn all about Mark's family history, and that he holds himself responsible for killing his little brother by going into this cave. Alex, they're not going to go Shadow Knight with Mark's brother, right?
When I was there, when I was watching it, and this is how crazy his comics are, I was like, I didn't even know he had a brother. And then there were, it was like, oh yeah, he's the Shadow Knight guy. And yeah, when someone said that, I was like, there's no way. You don't just like, right now he's the brother that died that he blames himself for. Like, that's all that he can be, especially in just this season. Maybe I wouldn't even push it to next season. That's like, if you've run out of things to talk about, sure, bring him back. Because the minute you bring him back, it negates everything. And we need to make sure that Mark heals from the trauma before we give him a second trauma of his brother, being back, that he never died at all. So I think that's more of a comic thing. I would stick it there.
All right. That makes me feel a little bit better. But Kevin, this cafeteria full of those victims, we see a lot of those victims later on. He said they were Khonshu's victims because they were predators or criminals or something like that. We know that these people weren't exactly good people, because they end up being the people in the duat in the sand later on. So, I mean, not to say they deserved it, but I mean, that's kind of what Khonshu is at least portraying. But Kevin, what did you make of just this entire trip down memory lane that Mark and Steven were going on?
Yeah, it was an interesting way to present the history of Mark and Steven, to just like learn the pieces, because as you guys have been saying in past episodes, and we've been saying offline and everything, like, what exactly of Mark's history is like true? Like was he actually a mercenary? Was he not, or whatever? So getting the little pieces that, like, oh, okay, he was definitely a mercenary. He did like follow more or less the comics origin for him, or whatever, was interesting to like fill in those blanks. And I know people had been saying that, like, especially starting with the show with Steven, like, people were unsure of like, okay, is Steven the actual personality, or was Mark the actual personality? Like, which one was who created which one, and whatever, so it was good to get those little pieces filled in and everything. And then seeing the Mark's history, like, it just filled out his history of like knowing that he did do some bad things, of like going after people and killing them. And I took it more, I forgot the line of whoever said it was Khonshu's victims, but like I just thought it was some of his mercenary kills of like from around the world or whatever, and not necessarily just him going after people as Moon Knight, So
Mark does say that they were Khonshu's. They were people that Khonshu was going after. It may not be all of them, but I'm sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but in any event, it just shows that like Mark has done things that, like, as we learn, like, Steven isn't privy to, and just like wouldn't even imagine like doing or anything, So I think it definitely helped. Obviously, it interacting Mark against Steven and everything, you see what Oscar Isaac was doing, but you definitely like learn more about who each of them are and eventually why each of them exist and are who they are.
Ryan, if we tune into last week's Agents of Field, everybody will learn that you've got a brother fairly close to your age as well. I'm sure you guys did some pretty stupid stuff when you were this age. Fortunately, it didn't turn out quite like this, but I would assume this kind of from an emotional standpoint hit you kind of like it did me too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just jarring to see how much that Mark has tried to suppress this, and it's affected him. Obviously, I mean, it's his brother, and he regrets it immediately. He says, "I never should have taken him into that cave." He blames himself, and it doesn't help that his mother is blaming him too. His mother is not comforting the son that she has. She's just blaming him and taking it out on him. And you can see how much everything Mark has done in his past, whether it was as a kid or as Moon Knight or as a mercenary, has affected him. It was really jarring to see the when he says, you try killing someone and tell me the reaction you have. It was very parallel kind of to the to Bucky when he says, Tony says, "Do you even remember them?" And he goes, "I remember all of them." And in Bucky, you have the internal dual personalities of being the Winter Soldier and being Bucky Barnes. But here we're getting it externally, and you're seeing Stephen Grant and Mark Spector as two different people and two different entities in this episode. So the parallels to, Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier are kind of strong here.
I understand his dad trying to walk that fine line between being a dad and being a husband. But other people at that party, seeing his mom struggle with that was really difficult. Like for me, and it's something, if you were to come across that, we need to be careful to not insert ourselves into other people's lives when stuff because we don't know everything. But if we see somebody in that being that abusive to somebody, I mean, I would hope I would at least be aware and be able to try and help Mark have some sort of, because nobody was really comforting Mark. Like they weren't even letting him be at the Shiva. That just kind of stood out to me upon second, third, fourth rewatches, to begin the episode by seeing that cave filling with water and then his mother yelling at him, "It's your fault." Like the first time I watched that, it was just jarring. You were very confused. And then it really hits hard the second and third times you watched it. Alex, anything on this that we haven't really touched on?
No, the one thing I was gonna say, did anyone else notice that his younger brother, I was like, man, that kid looks familiar. And I looked him up and this is it. But then I was like, oh, young Maya Lopez.
Kind of does, actually.
I don't know what they looked identical. And I was like, oh, wow. So I knew I saw her somewhere. No, I think you're absolutely right. I wrote that down too, that this is all your fault. Opening up the episode is really same thing. I was like, what? And then, it hit you when you watched it. But then watching it a second time, it really sets the tone for the entire episode of just how much guilt he has. And it goes back to what Harold was saying a couple episodes ago of him feeling like he's unworthy of love. That's why we now know why he feels like he's unworthy of love, is because his own mother doesn't love him. And I think I liked that a lot in this, because I completely agree with you, Brian. I mean, it's weird to say it that way, but it's like in a movie setting, you would expect it to be the father, because it's typically, the drunk dad or the abusive father, because the mom's always the one that's there to support them. And yeah, she's usually also getting, punched or whatever it ends up being. And so to see it be her, and then to have a very weak spined father who doesn't really stand up for his son, you see how that makes a lot of sense too. Like it's the duality of those types of instances where, just like you said, I mean, I was like, no one else is going to say anything. No one's going to speak up. No one's going to call Child Protective Services. But what are you going to do? She just lost her son. So it's like, how, like you said, what are you supposed to do in a situation like that? And there's no precedent. Like no one's dealt with that. Sorry, my kid just died in a cave because I told my son to watch him and he didn't listen. Like I would be mad at my kid, but I certainly wouldn't go that far. But there'd be probably some time where I would need to breathe and come back to things, because you can tell too in the flashbacks prior that she loves him. And I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it almost felt like she loved him more than Mark even before that part in time, because she had a nickname for him. I think she called him Roro or something like that. and you know, you need to keep an eye on him, you need to watch out for him. But it was never like, you be safe. It was always, you need to protect your younger brother.
Well,
So
they said she said during the Mark's birthday memory that she was like, you were always jealous of him, or like that's what the mom said, like saying that, like, of how like you were always, that was her rationale of why it happened, was because Mark had been jealous of the affection she was giving her brother or whatever, you know. So like,
and it's so sad, because that's like 100% projection, right? Is that she knew she was playing favorites, and now she's using that against him as justification to push that blame onto him too. It just, all of it is so messed up, and it was beautifully portrayed on here. I mean, I cried the first time I watched the episode, because I was just like, did not expect that. That's not what happens in the comics, and I was really hoping that they would go the Bemis issue of like the rabbi and all of that. But I think this is awesome. I like this a lot better, and it says a lot about him in terms of his healing, and that it's so close to home versus it being some person outside of the family.
But we'll get back to talking about her in just a minute. We'll go in the same order that the episode did. Next thing we get, Rob told you on our episode last week, we were going to see it. We expected to see it. We see Mark become Moon Knight. Steven is hardcore judging Moon Knight, saying he was manipulating you from the beginning. That's going to be very interesting to watch that play out. But Alex, we get the first name drop of the Bushman, or of Bushman. Who is Bushman? What's going on here?
Yeah, he's exactly what they tell you in the show. I was really happy to see that. I was like, nice. I mean, we didn't get to see him, but he essentially was the lead mercenary on this dig. And he's, as you can see, a lot more power hungry than the other mercenaries. He decided he wanted it all for himself. And then the thing is, and I'm trying to remember when it happens, but at some point he gets his face cut off. And so he's got like you know, the top part of his skin is missing. So he's still totally fine. He just looks terrifying. Oh. And so I don't know. I don't remember how that happened, but I'm sure if they show him and they do that for this, it would be totally different. Because again, that's another like mystery thing, I think, from the comics. But I was glad to see that. And I like that they didn't really show him. They just made it part. But part of that is like, okay, so you keep making these drops, you keep doing these things. We get a quick 3-minute about how you became Moon Knight, and then they're like, well, that was 10 years ago. And we talked about that on the last one of like, so are we going to get to see him being Moon Knight at all over the last, 10 years? And he talks later about how it was only 2 months between, and it's only one episode left. So it's like, I'm appreciating the little Easter egg drops, but I also wish that they had 15 episodes that they could dive into all of this stuff.
Not to compare DC and Marvel, but I think by Peacemaker being 8 episodes, I remember being around there going, man, if this was Marvel, it really would be over in one episode, because it just feels like 6 is the magic number. And but it like Peacemaker, they were able to take the 7th episode and resolve the storyline with his dad. And then, I mean, spoiler alert, resolved the storyline with his dad, and then in the 8th episode really resolved the storyline around the butterflies and the cow and all that kind of stuff. And being able to resolve, because you have so many plates spinning right now, whether it be Layla, whether it be Moon Knight, where is Khonshu? We're going to talk about this. Where the heck is Jake? Because he has to exist. They've dropped way too many references to the existence of this third personality. So we'll talk about that at the end. But there's just, again, not to be down on it, because I think this episode was absolutely fantastic, and it's not fair to this episode, but I do wonder, how are we going to be able to pull this off? Kevin, what did you make of Steven kind of judging Khonshu for taking advantage of Mark in this particular circumstance?
Yeah, I think he was looking at the situation in a sense of seeing these moments that Mark has been going through, and kind of being like, well, if I was here, I wouldn't have done this, like I would have been like, oh, like Khonshu, he's like totally playing you, or like, and he's definitely judging, but like he's also like trying to reconcile like how they are where they are, because he's like, he obviously didn't have all the facts from or the memories of what was happening through Mark, and so he sees everything and is like, oh, like, yeah, like Khonshu's just been playing you. Like in the moments when Steven and Khonshu have been interacting, like he wasn't trusting him that much, and so now he's just like, yeah, like he's just been playing you for the entire time, and like he was like he wasn't trying to help you, he was only trying to serve himself or whatever, and as a bonus you got to live, but like you were tied as a puppet, like from the moment you accepted this and such.
when he tells Tara like later, like she's like, well, it seemed like you kind of wanted to get away from this guy. Are you sure you want to go back? He goes, yeah, I don't really have a choice at this point. Like I need the Moon Knight suit back so I can basically not have a bullet hole in my chest anymore. Ryan, how about you? Anything about this Moon Knight transformation really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Khonshu probably took advantage of Mark, and he was in a situation, and Mark had a choice of, do you want to die or do you want to become my avatar and stay alive? So Khonshu took advantage. Mark Spector's paying the price for it, but until Khonshu's avatar was taken out of him, he was basically gifted with eternal life. Whether that's for good or bad, is up for debate, but
he didn't die that night because of Khonshu. So I mean, and that's fair. We come back to the world. Anybody, by the way, did anybody else notice that the boat they're riding on is the exact same boat that is in the one fin fish tank at the beginning in the first episode?
Oh no way!
Oh, no.
I think I read that, but I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't notice that it was in the tank.
It stood out to me when Mark's like, kill the hippo, steal the ship. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. But this is the one time where we kind of go back to our one hint that, okay, yeah, everything in the first 4 episodes is real, that all these unbalanced souls are being condemned to the duat immediately. They're not being able to be given the chance for judgment, basically. And they discuss it. Harrow must have been successful, which means Amit is out there. That's the one drop in this episode that, yep, we didn't waste our time with the first 4 episodes by telling this story that doesn't matter. It's a true thing that's happening. Alex, anything that stand out to you here between those unbalanced souls being condemned without judgment?
Yeah, I think this is a glimmer of hope for this last episode, in the sense that I feel like this is them saying, we're skipping this part for you guys, because, you got to the point where once Harrow killed him, and maybe they do still do a little bit of a flashback, but like, I would assume Harrow kills him. Layla ran off. He now has the, what's it called? The Ushepti, and, cracks it open. She shows up and he's like, let's get this going. And that's, the typical movie fashion. So maybe they just skip past that now. And so when Mark comes back, all hell has broken loose, and Harrow's super powered, and he's got to figure out how to fight him. And I like that. I think that's cool, because again, we've seen that 100 times of the guy finally really, we've seen The Mummy, we've seen Indiana Jones, we've seen them all. Yeah, so I liked that.
If they feel the need to catch us up, it really won't be long enough.
My hope is this next episode opens on the Field of Reeds, and he like turns around and Khonshu's there or something, because Layla already freed him. And boom, we're done. Like, because again, we've got a lot of different things that need to be wrapped up, and I'm okay with the pardon the phrasing of the Mandalorian ship getting repaired. I'm okay with that happening off screen, and it just getting to whatever the next thing is. Like, I'm fine with Layla freeing Khonshu later and Amit coming out, behind the scenes, as long as we can wrap up some of the more important pieces.
Kevin, Ryan, you guys got anything there before we move on? Perfect. So we're going to move on. Steven really wanted to go into that bedroom. He wanted to understand what was going on. It's funny to me that Steven remembers a Chicago Cubs banner on his wall, but then didn't really think anything of it. But Steven learns about his origin, of where he came from. This was brutal, because Mark loved his mother. Mark truly loved his mother. And the entire reason Steven was created was so he could remember him, or he could remember her not being this way. When she's trying to beat down that door, said, that's not my mom. That's not my mom. And he takes on the Dr. Stephen Grant persona of, I've got to clean this up. And then you can see the light bulb. Oscar Isaac, like, how you can be 2 completely different people at the same time is incredible to me. But you see that light bulb come on Stephen's face, and the realization that I was created. I'm not the real guy. Kevin, what did you make of Stephen learning this at the same time that the rest of us did?
Yeah, it was absolutely heartbreaking just to like see this, and like, as I think a lot of us who maybe haven't been familiar with DID coming into this, like, and have been learning about it, of like learning that the disease, it sort of or the disorder, excuse me, happens a lot during traumatic moments when somebody's a child, and so like this, obviously, like this repeated abuse and neglect from his mother is like just like it just got to the point where Mark just needed like more or less like a safe, happy place to like go to, and that just manifested as this his favorite movie character with his brother from the Tomb Busters series. Like he was Dr. Grant and his brother was the other character who the name
Gosser, I think.
Gosser or something like so he was able to just take on that. He had already been acting or playing as that character, with his brother, so he just like more or less morphed that into his own personality. So like you said, he could remember his mother as a loving person and not remember all of this, and obviously then through the years like know that she's still alive or believe she's still alive or whatever and such, and so just seeing Steven realize that, like we were saying, like we were going into this, we didn't know for the series at least, unlike the comics where Mark is definitely the main person. Like was Steven the main person? Was Mark? Like what was going on here? So just it was absolutely heartbreaking stuff.
Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I think it everything Kevin said. It's heartbreaking to see what he had to do to escape the trauma, and I don't know any other word to use except heartbreaking. The one thing I will say is that Oscar Isaac killed it in this role. I mean, not only did he play Stephen Grant and Mark Spector in the current time, he also played in the streets of Chicago the Mark Spector from 2 months ago, who is crying in the streets. And then you have Mark Spector currently overwatching himself having an existential crisis. And then he played Stephen Grant having an existential crisis, realizing he doesn't exist. So 3 characters in the same shot is just insanity.
When his eyes kind of roll back in his head and kind of Steven takes over, and that's Mark describes that as that's the day their worlds kind of started blending a little bit. And Dr. Harrow says that that's the day Steven checked himself into this institute. Steven doesn't claim to remember this, which is interesting, but I get really annoyed when somebody on a movie or a TV show talks on their phone and you can see the screen knowing like it's not a true phone call. They made a point to show you like he literally had just like unlocked his phone and just started talking on it, like imagining that he was speaking to his mother, because they wanted to make a point that there's nobody on the other end of this phone call. And Steven was just trying to live in this world where she was still alive. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I was smiling a little bit earlier because I'm scratching my head. I feel like we've seen some episode of TV, maybe around the exact same. I think we maybe even talked about this episode where a mentally traumatized person utilizes old film to create something new in the future. I just don't remember what it is, but no, the 2 things I wanted to call out were. There we go. Also, yeah, I mean, identical too, in the sense of like the person showing the door and through the door is the memory. But that scene on his birthday when he blew out his candles was probably the most obviously it was a depressing birthday, but it just broke me the second time I watched it when he misses the last candle. And you can just tell that he's half-assing it, and his dad can't even blow out the candle. Was, to me, that was just so sad. But yeah, in this bit, I was going to say, did you guys catch the scales in his room underneath the poster?
The little toy
scale. Yeah, I was like, oh,
cool.
That's pretty cool. I didn't catch anything else besides that. But yeah, no, that whole thing was so sad. And also huge shout out to David. I did notice on this one, you can't tell during the Shiva of his mother, but during the Shiva for his brother, the mirror is covered. You can see it in the living room. It is covered with a sheet. So he had a theory about maybe that's why, the personalities switch in the mirrors. And there's maybe some thing that I did like his dad getting longer hair too. I liked that look. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, that whole bit was just terrifying in a sense of him, going back and forth between his personalities. And yeah, I didn't catch it even on the first episode, but 2 months. So we now know that his mom died 2 months ago. Like we just keep getting these little pieces of information peppered in to the point where this would have been probably would have been a great 8-episode series too. But you could have probably even pulled off a 10-episode series for this one if you really wanted to, or a 9-episode series. But I'm just waiting for them to, like, we still Where's Moon Knight in the real world? Like, when are we going to get to see where he was during the Avengers during 2012? Where was he during, X, Y, and Z? Did he get blipped away? Because, they're admitting that he was around, but maybe he was just in Egypt. Who knows? I don't know.
I'm willing to forgive that, but they want this to be its own self-contained story for now. Like I'm willing to kind of go that way. It doesn't sound like it, but I'm willing to withhold judgment like on how they pull this off until we see Wednesday.
Yeah.
And really, if it is just simply a season 1, then I'm all in. Like, but I'm just nervous. I'm just nervous. What's interesting to me is we see Steven and he stares Mark in the face, and it's crazy to me that this is the same actor. And it really feels like two different people, where it's Mark forgiving himself. That's simply what is happening here. That is Mark finally realizing I was a kid. I made a mistake. I clearly didn't mean to kill him. How my mother treated me, how my mother did everything, how I grew up, that was beyond my control. It's Mark forgiving himself, but Steven forgives Mark. And the way Oscar Isaac acts in this particular scene, like, just congratulations to him on what he's been able to do. But I wanted to call out that scene is some of the most emotional stuff that we've gotten. I really liked it. It even leads us to the point where Steven's now come to this realization. Okay, well, I'm the quote unquote made up one. He kind of gets over it fairly quickly after he has this confrontation with Dr. Harrow, and he comes in with the cricket bat and he saves Mark, and we get the death of Steven. Alex, how hard did the death of Steven Grant hit you?
Not hard at all, because I was like, this can't be real. This is, real, right? But like, I don't know. I feel
killing the personality. Do you think we never see Steven Grant again?
I feel like we will, but I don't know, because I'm wondering. I feel like Marvel has done a really good job of kind of understanding and appreciating these disorders. And I guess there's two schools of thought, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. But like, is it as something as simple as, oh, okay, he's cured. He doesn't have his other personality anymore. That's how easy it is, guys. Or is it like, okay, well, you have to go to the underworld and you have to go through this traumatic experience, and that's how you can get rid of it? Like, if that's the case, I'm fine with that. But if it is just like a, hey, that was it, he's gone, I don't know. I feel like if it's part of him, and in a weird way, kind of hit a superpower in a sense, right? That he has these multiple people, that doesn't just go away. And so maybe is that now that Steven's gone, that now Jake can come in. But at that point, then why did his scales balance, right? If Jake is still out there, his skills shouldn't have balanced. There should have still been a little thing. So again, some questions need to be answered, but I really hope that Steven's not gone, because I need more of, like, Mark walks in somewhere and he's like, oh, this is a perfect time for Steven, and flips over to Steven and does something cool there. Like, everything in that third episode where he's translating things and putting the map together, like, all of that I loved. And so I would love to see more of that in another, like, adventure, like you said, another season. But if he's gone, then dang, because it's a tough way to go. He went out swinging, though, so can't blame him for it.
Kevin, R.I.P. Steven with a V.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Alex. Like, boat. Yeah.
Kill the hippo, steal the boat.
Yeah. Because I don't think it's weird, because obviously, like, if Mark manifested Steven in the past, and they're just in like this weird limbo state, like, I don't think like he's cured because of this. So like, can Steven re-manifest himself, So like, and obviously Mark went through to the field of reeds, and like, so they didn't actually.
They were at the gate of Osiris, and then he ends up in the field of reeds, which is, Alex, we'll get back to you in just a second, unless you need to go right now.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, they both didn't fall over the boat. So like, Mark obviously went through, and just knowing that he has manifested Steven in the past, and we don't know about Jake, if Jake has been manifested in the past, and they just don't, the barriers between those personalities haven't broken down as much as Steven's has, or like Alex was saying, maybe now that Steven's out of the way, Jake can enter the personality picture or something, like, I don't know, but I hope he's not dead. Or at least we either get a tease at the end of because I want to see, at least in this final episode, more Moon Knight, obviously, but especially in that third episode when you switch between Moon Knight to Mr. Knight, like right, like instantly, like that was really cool. Of like when Steven was like, put me in, and then the Moon Knight costume became the Mr. Knight, like all that was super cool. So I really hope we get to see more Steven at some point. But yeah, so I don't really know. It's a weird line to like navigate with the whole DID situation and everything, I think.
Alex, we were at the Gate of Osiris, then we're in the Field of Reeds. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Khonshu brings Mark back from the Field of Reeds, Steven is coming back from there too. Because right now they are both in this astral plane. And so if one of them's going, they're both going to get taken up. It doesn't matter when. But if he were to never go out, then yeah, that's the way that they go. This is like this is the goodbye before the resuscitation happens. And he's like, oh, I'm alive. And then they're going to have a badass scene, like you said, Kevin, where, you know, you don't expect it. And all of a sudden you see Mr. Knight show up and you're like, oh, Steven's still alive. Let's go. That's my bet.
Ryan, how about you?
I think, you know, while I agree with some of the things that Alex and Kevin said, I think it's a little bit, I don't know about if it's more simple or more complicated, but I think that Mark, like you said, we said he was able to forgive himself for he was just a kid, but he also realizes the value that Steven brought to him. Like it saved his life by having this coping mechanism because he didn't have to live with the realization about what his mother was doing to him. So what I think is ultimately going to happen is Mark comes back without Steven, but what he does is in memory of Steven, he takes some of those things into his everyday life. He gets more into history. He tries to patch things up with Layla and be a better husband and things like that. Like the way that Layla looked at Steven, Mark wants Layla to look at him like that again. So I just think it's going to be merging of the personalities rather than two separate ones.
I like that too. Yeah.
Maya says, I have a feeling we aren't going to see Steven again. If healing Mark means needed to release this coping mechanism, Steven, then him coming back wouldn't make sense. Yeah, we could see just Mark take on more of that personality. Let's get into it. We've dropped the name a couple of times. Jake Lockley is a third personality in the comic books. We're not basing this only on comic suspicions. We're allowing the MCU to take on its own thing. But simple fact is, one, there was the sarcophagus at the end of the 4th episode with a trapped person in it. That was not there by accident. But two, in that same episode, Mark blacks out. He thought Steven takes over the body. They kill all those people. Steven said it wasn't him. Mark says it wasn't him. They have put into this show that there is a third him in there. And then that third sarcophagus, Jake is here somewhere. Alex, where the crap is Jake Lockley? What is going on here?
Yeah, I have no idea. And I think I'm still trying to think about why they chose this route. And knowing the show so far, it makes sense because that's just one more thing now that they have to deal with. And there's so much going on. But I could see that being
it just didn't have to be in there unless they wanted it there.
Right. And so so I think you drop a couple hints and then maybe that's either going to be the thing that is, again, another one of those big reveals at the end of this episode where, you know, we get a badass third Moon Knight suit with Jake in it, or, you know, we see something about Jake, which again would require some explanation, but we could also get it as a cool post-credit scene of something Jake related that teases then for a second season where we see more of Jake. Because again, at the end of the day, I really just want to see all three working in tandem to get stuff done, because it's just been so much of everyone at odds with each other, which is fine for a first season. But yeah, other than that, I have no idea. And I kind of like that. I like that we still have some guesses we don't know for sure. And it keeps it kind of exciting that way.
Maya also said it's assumed that Jake asked Steven's coworker on a date too. I guess I never really thought about it. I always assumed Mark was the one that was actually.
Yeah, I thought that was Mark too.
Date. But Mark's married, and Mark
is good point.
So that's interesting. I wasn't assuming that Jake was the one doing the asking out, but that's an interesting thought process. I really thought about halfway through this episode we were going to see an extremely violent memory, and Mark was going to be like, I don't remember this. I don't remember any of this, and that was where Jake was going to be inserted into the story. I thought the way he developed, hang on, give me just a second.
Sure,
the way he developed Steven to cope with that, I thought was how he developed, and it's still possible, is how he developed another personality in Jake to deal with the extremely violent things that he was doing. Go ahead now, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Brian. I was just going to say when you said about the memory, I thought when they initially when Steven initially came up to the car of the mom's funeral, like, what's this? Like, I don't remember the street or whatever. Like, Mark kind of like played it like on the like, oh, it could be any street or whatever, you know? And so I thought that was a memory that was going to be neither of theirs, you know? And so just the way they approached it, but then obviously it came back around and it was the mother's death and it was Mark there and whatever. But I would have bet for sure at the end of this episode that Jake would have come. Well, one, that they needed Jake's heart to balance the hearts. So I thought that a lot of people assumed that, and then I thought at the end when Mark was getting attacked, that like Jake would have come out then, and we would have seen him there, you know. But I think at least for this final episode, if anything Jake related, it'll probably be in a post credit, because I think it's going to be too much to introduce him anywhere between the beginning and the end of this episode on Wednesday and have you get invested in Jake on top of all of what's happening. So like, I think like what Alex said is anything Jake related is going to be the post-credit scene that's either going to tease where next season or wherever Moon Knight goes next. And then we like learn, and then maybe he's like, maybe something happens that the personality shifts over, that he's going to be like as Jake for like quote unquote like most of the time, like because something happens that like Mark is repressed for too much. So like the next time we see, if Oscar Isaac is continuing this role, which, you know, he says he isn't, but who knows, like next time we see Oscar Isaac, it'll be Jake Lockley that we're seeing for most of the time, or, you know, something like that. I don't know. But
if we get Jake Lockley in a modern day Moon Knight black and white suit, like I am completely here for it. Ryan, any predictions on Jake other than it being your middle name?
I agree with Kevin that if we do get him in this episode at all, which I am not convinced we are, I see the hints, but I'm not convinced we will get him. It will be in a post-credit scene. Like you said, there's too much to balance. I don't know how to do this without just going off the deep end, but is it possible, and hear me out, that
Cannonball,
one or multiple of the personalities could have been snapped? Like Mark imagined that Jake Lockley got snapped, but none of the other ones did. So that's why Jake Lockley hasn't come out.
No, that'd be interesting. You'd have to really convince me.
I think it's because it's based on the bodies, not on the minds.
Yeah. I mean,
you'd have to really convince me of it.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I'm just really speculative tonight.
I like that one though. That's really creative. That's like a second tin hat on top of the other tin hat.
Yeah, I just like maybe they all got snapped, but he doesn't think he did, and then I don't know. Never mind. But yeah, I'm not convinced we're getting Jake Lockley in this episode. If we do, it'll be in a post-credit scene.
Alex, I'm going to put 3 things out there. I would like you to rank them in possibility of happening, and then, well, it's kind of 2 in 1. And then any predictions on the finale. The 3 things are Dane Whitman, Blade, and season 2.
Of what I want?
Yeah, what do you expect? Do you think we see Dane Whitman or Blade, or do you expect the season 2?
You know, they did say that there's going to be some MCU connection in this one.
Did they? I hadn't heard that.
I think, I don't remember who said it or what said it, but it was like something about how this does. Or are you guys teasing me?
No. Ryan snapped his fingers.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember where it was, but all I remember was like this series is very far removed from the MCU. I think it was Kevin Feige or someone said that, but like it ties sort of in the last, something like that. I would put my money on it being Blade, because Blade seems to be recruiting people. I don't know why you would show up to Dane's place, you know, unannounced and just whisper behind his ear. So maybe it's a similar sort of tease with him, that Blade shows up and, you know, Moon Knight's about to do something and says, "Are you sure you're about to do that, Mark Steven Jake?" And, you know, whatever that ends up being. But no, I would love, and that's what I'm honestly waiting for, is at the end, you know, with Loki, right? Of something where it says Moon Knight will return, or they go like Mark will return, or whatever it ends up being. But prediction wise, I feel like maybe we get Layla in the suit, maybe, but I'm predicting that Layla gets Khonshu. Khonshu saves Mark and Steven. They fight Harrow, defeat Harrow, and there's something else too, right? Isn't there something we still need them wrapped up with? That might be it. And then we find out maybe that Khonshu's wants something else, but that's about all I've got.
Kevin, how about you?
For those things listed, top one would probably be Blade, but I'm gonna throw a curveball, and we're gonna see the actor who's gonna be in this Werewolf by Night special, and he's gonna appear, and everybody's gonna go like, "Who?" And
Who?
exactly. We're gonna, he's gonna pair up, and everybody's gonna be like, "Who's this guy?" And like, because I mean, my money's on that's where we see Oscar Isaac next. It's in this special coming out in Halloween. So that would be my guess. For predictions for the, I think Layla in the suit, or I think maybe Rob might have said last week, and I've heard other people say that there's a very minor character called like the Scarlet Scarab or something, who's like a protector of Egypt, and have Layla maybe become more of that person, or like I don't know if they actually have a costume, or like they get something that is quote unquote a costume. Defeat. I just hope if whatever the final battle is less of the same types of less of the avatar two avatars going at it, like I feel like Moon Knight is unique enough that, and Arthur Harrow can be unique enough that it's not like the Wanda Agatha where it's like two magic users going at it, and so hopefully we can move away from that in the final battle. But honestly, I'm just hoping we get things wrapped up, and it leaves us in a spot either teasing more or which would be good, and not us wishing there had been more, or that it wasn't rushed through or something like that. That's just my hope for it.
I want to see a full Khonshu versus Amit battle. I think that'd be fun.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Ryan, are you still riding the Gore the God Butcher train?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I was going next.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer that we are going to end up getting back to Earth, or real timeline. Mark comes back to life, and all those people that went to the underworld were not random souls. That was Gore the God Butcher murdering all the gods because they
so wait, all the souls that were being brought back to kill everybody, with the whole plot line of the entire story.
Yeah, forget all that.
Okay.
No, I had a thought, just that the gods believed Harrow. They over and one of their own gods, Khonshu. And there's going to be some kind of connection. I don't know if maybe that's just what it was. Just the way that the souls from Earth came down, it just seemed way too mystical, few and mystical, to not be something more than just them just meeting their end. Like something had to have happened to them, and it could be them getting butchered by a god named Gore.
I mean, I think Ryan. I mean, I think those were actual souls that like Amit like judged or whatever. But like I think Ryan may be onto like that the god that we might see Gore come and like take down some of these Egyptian gods and such. So like he
doesn't even need a necro sword. All he needs is a hammer. He just walks into the place and just go to each statue.
That's true.
Yep.
They're all just sitting there. They're right for the. There's not even a door blocking them.
This is the problem is Disney Plus. You would think it's self-contained enough where you don't get anything big. We go through WandaVision, nothing massive. Like, I mean, Agatha was awesome, but it wasn't Mephisto. It wasn't this. And then Kang showed up. Like, He Who Remains showed up, and all bets are off, man. Like, we don't know who. If Gore shows up, like, you can host the show next week. Like, I would be shocked. I'm excited for it. We talked a lot about my nerves. If I simply get a season 2 announcement, I'm going to be completely happy. I genuinely love this show. I love Oscar Isaac. I'm not ready for him to leave the MCU. I hope he's lying that he's only a one and done deal. Alex, we did not talk anything Multiverse of Madness tonight. It comes out on Thursday night. Alex, why didn't we talk about Multiverse of Madness?
Because we've got a lot to talk about coming up here this weekend. We've got multiple shows, so I am so excited, guys. Please, and this is very rare, but we have such an amazing week this week. Tomorrow is Moon Knight Eve, which is crazy to even say Moon Knight finale, but then we get the finale of Moon Knight, and then we get Multiverse of Madness, and for most of us, we're seeing it a couple times. So we're just going to be riding that train, trying to watch Moon Knight again, but who knows if we'll even want to after we see Doctor Strange. Ryan and myself are going to be recording. We'll see how long it goes. There are no holds limits, but the plan is going to be we will be recording an episode for Comics and Cinema. We'll release that out in a podcast format, and then next Tuesday we will release the video format of it at that point. So it'll be pre-recorded. My birthday's next week too, so I'm taking a week off. Sue me, but yeah, so excited. And then Brian, we've got our huge Earth's Mightiest Weirdos on Sunday. What is that at 5:30, 7:30 Eastern? Yeah, 5:30 my time. Which I cannot wait for that too. That's so where it's not often I get to talk about Doctor Strange literally all day long, and the only thing I regret is that it's on Mother's Day. Don't worry, Mom. I will be giving you a call on Saturday.
Celebrate Mother's Day with Mom. Multiverse of Madness. Strange Sunday on Sunday. It'll be a similar format to what we did with Spider Sunday. I really like that. We were able to get multiple weirdos in and out talking about different characters, all that kind of stuff. Alex took the wind right out of my sails. Strange Sunday, Sunday night, this Sunday, 7:30. We get to see Doctor Strange on Thursday. I can't wait. But Alex, you didn't even tell us what's happening tomorrow on Comics and Cinema.
Oh, sorry. That's what I was thinking you were referring to. Yeah. Oh, man. So then, and we're also talking Doctor Strange tomorrow on our Comics and Cinema live stream. Kevin and Brian are going to be joining us on that one. And basically doing a Doctor Strange preview. So where have all the characters been? For those of you that haven't watched any of it, we'll kind of give a little bit of a recap, talk about our guesses, what we think. So we may put some tinfoil hats on and see what we can come up with. But I'm excited. I'm excited to chit chat about that. Also have a brand new omnibus that came in that I'm very excited to reveal.
Maya also wants to make sure we plug the Nerdy Girls After Dark Mother's Day episode, which will be a taped episode that will come out Thursday night at their normal time of 8:30 Eastern, because they will all be in the movie theater seeing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as well. Ryan, what is this week on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, so just want to mention that Alex and I have been planning this Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Episode Madness for like well over a year at this point. So it's going to be
before Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's going to be freaking awesome. In terms of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this Wednesday is going to be super exciting. We have our NFL draft review followed by our Star Wars celebration show. We're going to be doing a Star Wars fantasy draft. We're going to be taking characters from the Star Wars universe and drafting them into sports different sports positions. We're going to have a big panel on Wednesday. It's going to be an awesome celebration. Tune in at 9 Eastern on Wednesday on the Nerd Life Network YouTube channel.
Ryan talks about that big panel. It is in collaboration with Babu's Frickin' Podcast, which has a standing spot on Sunday nights here on the Nerd Life Network. Has not made its Nerd Life Network debut quite yet, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is coming, my friends. Kevin, anything you got?
Yeah, just follow Nerd Life Network, Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, and all these other podcasts on their socials. Please keep checking out the Earth's Mightiest Minute when we do it every week. I really appreciate all the feedback and views we've gotten on that so far. Also, just as a friendly warning, tonight, if you've been watching us here, we appreciate that, and that means you probably haven't been watching the Doctor Strange red carpet premiere, which is bound to have people on it that are probably going to spoil stuff, because Marvel loves to bring out people who may or may not be in the movie and interview them, so please avoid that. Also, we've been seeing online that there have been leaks already of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so please watch where you're treading on line. Nerd Life Network, Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, all of us, we are a spoiler-free community, so don't worry about anything from us. We will not be spoiling it for you. And if you do happen to get spoiled, keep it to yourself. And then, like Brian said, come join us on Sunday, where you can discuss all the spoilers with us in the comments and on the Strange Sunday show. But other than that, stay safe out there, weirdos.
We won't spoil it, but we also may be a lot less active to not get spoiled.
That is true.
Ourselves. Until next time, gentlemen, laters, Gators.
Earth's Mightiest Weirdos is brought to you by Pinch of Pixie Dust Travel. People who love travel understand that life isn't about the breaths you take, it's about the moments that take your breath away. That's why we help coordinate the most magical adventures for you and your family. Disney, Universal, Sandals, Norwegian, Carnival, and more, we are a full-service concierge travel agency that will help with every aspect of your journey. Let us take care of the details while you enjoy your family. Get a quote today by calling us at 570-832-7798 or fill out a trip request form at pinchapixiedostravel.com. Just follow the second star to the right straight on to your adventure. That's pinchapixiedostravel.com, where you're making memories one trip at a time.
Do not forget Strange Sunday, this Sunday, May 8th, live on YouTube, 7:30 Eastern.